We tend to think of heart disease as a disease of old age, but tragically, it can often strike in young people. Every year, some 80 young people lose their lives from a heart condition they never knew they had. Mary, first of all, can you just tell us what happened to your son, Peter?
Peter had just finished his junior cert that day, went to bed, a perfectly healthy young guy. He was 15 and a half. He woke about 3:30. I heard a moan and went to investigate and found that he'd been sick. And he said to me, "I have a terrible pain in my chest." We arrived in the hospital, it was just after 4 in the morning. And Peter walked into the hospital, aided by the two of us. I suddenly took a look at him and thought he was going to be sick again. He turned whiter than white. Within a few minutes, maybe 5-10 minutes, a consultant turned up and said that Peter was seriously ill. And what I remember then was about 15 minutes later, again she said, she turned up and said, "I'm really sorry, we've lost Peter." And the devastation of that was just enormous.
Eamon was diagnosed when he was 12 with cardiomyopathy, and he was told at the time he wasn't able to play sports. He got really into golf, and he actually died on the golf course.
Conor was at home for the weekend, July 23rd, 2006, and he came back, we think, about 8:30 at night, and he died about 20 minutes later. He just collapsed on the floor.
Cardiac disease is often hereditary, and it's estimated that up to 10,000 young people in Ireland are at risk. Preventing these needless tragedies centres around educating young people and their families about the risk and accurate diagnosis. And behind me in Tallaght Hospital is the centre, which is entirely funded by CRY, which has assessed more than 1,500 people a year since it was set up. Dr. Deirdre Ward has been testing patients here since the centre opened. What exactly are you testing for?
We're testing for inherited heart conditions. So one of the main causes of sudden death in a young person who dies of sudden cardiac death is a genetic condition which may be inherited. So if somebody in the family has died, other people in the family potentially have a 1 in 2 chance of having the same condition. There's a sort of a basic batch of tests that pick up most things. So the simplest one is a resting ECG, which is a recording of the electrical activity in the heart. And that will tell us about electrical conditions and often gives us abnormalities if there's heart muscle conditions. Then we usually do this ultrasound test, which is to look at the heart's structure. This takes about 20 minutes from start to finish, and then we would usually do a treadmill test as well.
I suppose coming in here, you can be given the satisfaction of knowing that everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, as soon as you take it off the treadmill, you go into the office and they tell you exactly what you need to know.
Well, I was working with Michael back in 1996, prior to existing, when his son Peter died, and Michael and Mary went on to set up the charity, and I was basically doing the typing and the admin work for him. My own niece then came to work with Michael that summer, got to know him, and then subsequently she died. So Jenny died, and that's when I suppose it really became personal for me. And then as a mum of 3 boys, I just needed the peace of mind to know that my boys weren't going to be affected, or if they had a condition, that I had to be able to deal with it.
Consultant cardiologist Dr. David Mulcahy helped to set up the CRY Centre. I suppose you felt that there was a need to do it. Is that because there was nothing like it at that time?
There was nothing. There was nothing. I remember when we moved out to Tallaght, for some reason or another, I set up an adolescent cardiology clinic, of which there were none in the country. And as part of that, I started getting the odd referral of young people who would have lost a sibling or a family member. And I found that I was seeing groups of 3 or 4 family members in my office at 7 or 8 at night with no proper structures and no way of dealing, never mind the medical issues, dealing with the shocking emotional effects of sudden death.
Cardiac disease in young people is devastating, and CRY also provide free counselling services for families affected by sudden death or cardiac disease.
A lot of families that have lost loved ones would get in touch, sisters, brothers, partners, mums, dads. They would have lost somebody in very traumatic circumstances. But it's a huge step to make, and making that phone call to actually say, I need to see somebody, it's a huge undertaking for anyone.
I was always active, I was never sick really, you know, at all, but then they picked up something on an ECG and then went into a doctor who told me that there might be an issue with the heart, and within, I suppose, 2 hours of that conversation I was told that, or asked that I got another career, because my soccer career was more than likely going to be finishing. You know, I've gone from signing for a 3-year contract to a team that was going to be playing in the Champions League qualifiers to literally no job, no education.
I'd get a lot of people who were actively involved in sports and they can no longer participate because of the cardiac condition. So that's massive. It's all of a sudden their life has changed dramatically.
CRY's activities are entirely financed by fundraising and donations, so your actions really do make a big difference. But I suppose the most important thing people would want to know is what can they do to help?
Well, we need between 30 and 40,000 euros a month to raise that sort of money. It's tough. It's the sheer goodness of people that enables us to provide the services that we do, because we fund them all, not just the hospital, but also the volunteers, the family support unit, the psychotherapists as well. I mean, we only have 2 people on the staff, everybody else voluntary, trustees, family support members, all voluntary. So without the fundraising, we would be lost. I mean, that's the bottom line. We have to raise funds in a very difficult market at the moment, but just it's the sheer goodness of people who give their time and their money to support us.
Well, the reason I'm here today, and obviously the place looks so brilliant, is for the CRY lunch in the Shelburne, which is a charity very close to my heart, set up by the parents of a friend of mine who passed away at the age of 16. And it is an amazing charity that looks to raise awareness about SADS, which is the sudden adult death syndrome, and also provides a clinic in Tala Hospital where people can go and get screened.
CRY is delivering the screening services, education, information and family support, all of which is critical. CRY rely on fundraising to provide these services as it's their sole source of income. Their fundraising is done by people like you, ordinary people doing extraordinary things to help CRY. So please help us whatever way you can.